Hey, are you talking about back in the day?
Nah, man. I'm talking about back in the day.
Back in the day. Back in the day. Back in the day. Back in the day. Back in the day. Back in the day. Back in the day. Back in the day. Back in the day. Back in the day.
Joining me today on the Back in the Day podcast, the voice of the Oklahoma Sooners, Mr. Toby Rowland. What's up, Toby?
Not much. It's actually a lot. It's football season, so a lot's going on. But how are you today?
I'm good, man. I'm sure I appreciate you squeezing us in. I'm sure you got a lot of stuff you have to do between the calls. I mean, it's the middle of a football season week, so I'm sure you have 1,000 things to do for sure, right?
It's busy. Yeah, it's busy. We got a radio show I do every morning, and of course, getting ready for the football game is kind of a week-long process throughout the week between hosting some shows and getting all my boards and everything right. Before I called you, I'm working on my spotter boards for Saturday's game against Houston, so you work on that all week. I got a little side gig going at Channel 9 here in town, so it's hopping. Life's hopping right now, but it's fun, you know. We're not digging ditches or roofing houses. I'm going to football games, so
Yeah,
I can't
absolutely.
complain.
Like I always tell people, it's like, hey, because I used to run some sales departments, and I'd always tell people, I was like, hey, we're not doing like hard work. We're just working hard. Like
That's
there's
right.
there's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like you're not having to like pick up boulders or be outside in the heat all day. Like you're
Yeah.
just making some phone calls. So don't sit there and tell me you're like I'm
No
killing
complaints.
myself every
Yeah,
day,
yeah.
right?
That's right. You're right.
You're
You're
just
right.
you're just putting in hard work, but you're not. You know,
I
you're
just got
working
to
hard,
sneak.
but
If I
not
could
putting in
sneak
hard
in
work.
a nap once in a while, life is good. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, okay, one of the coolest things I think you do that you get to do is the scene setter every single week. So if my listeners, if you're not familiar with it, what does that come out the day before or the morning of? Is that when it normally comes out?
It usually comes out the morning of the game. Yeah.
The morning of the game, they put together, Sooner Sports puts together a like minute and a half, 2 minute long clip that Toby voices over and it just kind of gets you hyped up for the game. Do you write that?
I love it. Do I
I mean,
write it? Oh, yeah. Do I
yeah,
write it? Yeah, I write it. Yeah, I write it. Yeah.
because I think the writing might be the best part.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I love to write. I wrote for the school newspaper in college. I had, an outlet for that when I was in television for a while and putting together features and stuff. And when I got to OU, which is my dream job, I was looking for kind of an outlet for some creative writing. So I started writing what I just generically called them scene setters just for the radio that we would voice and put some music under the first year, which was back in 2011 that I had the job. And so it was just kind of a, hey, here's what today's game means, and try to do it in a a poetic way or just a good way, a dramatic way. And we just did it on radio the first year. And then the second year, the marketing people came and said, hey, would you care if we put some video to your scene setters? We'd like to put them on the big screen. And I thought, well, that's cool. Yeah, sure. Let's do that. And so they started putting them on the big screen before football games. And that's when it kind of exploded from there. And now, they put it out on social media and everything. I've created a little bit of a monster because now there's probably no way I can ever stop doing them.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it. I get a little my heart starts racing at the beginning of every year because I'm like, what else can I say? I feel like I've written every scene setter that is to write. But thank God we're in the SEC now because there's a whole new group of teams and a whole new group of places, and I got a whole new set of things to write about. So I love it. I usually write them Sunday night when the family goes to bed and I get a little tired. I'll go out on the back porch or find a quiet place and try to see if I can come up with something. And then the process from there is a little bit out of my hands. I'll send it off for music to be added, and then they'll send it off for video to be added. And then magically it shows up on Saturday morning on everybody's phones and laptops and everything. So but I enjoy it. I do enjoy it.
Yeah, it's definitely like something that I know I look forward to every single week.
Thank you.
And I make my daughters watch it, even though they're it's like, why are we watching this again, Dad? Isn't this the
Dad,
same
not
thing you
again,
showed
please.
me? I'm
Yeah.
like, no, we're getting hyped for the game. It's like, can I just go play outside? Why are you showing this to me again? But yeah, it's something that makes it unique for each game day for sure. Something that you said about that. So it's like what's exciting is that is a whole new crop of teams, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
have you had to do a ton of research this year for things to talk about for the scene setter or just things on the actual broadcast?
I I started doing a thing on Twitter or X. I think we were almost 300 days out about the SEC fact of the day. I stumbled across this 10-part documentary that's on ESPN about the SEC. I think it's called Saturdays Down South. It's all about SEC football. And I was fascinated by it. And I kind of have this desire to not be the new guy who doesn't know anything going into the league, you know? Like, I know the SEC is great, but I don't know all of the history behind
Yeah.
Rocky Top and Alabama and Auburn and LSU and everything. Like, I know OU and Texas and all the schools in the Big 12. So this documentary was captivating to me. And I started, and there were a lot of things in there that I had never heard before. So a light bulb went off, and I said, I wonder if other people would enjoy this. So I started putting out an SEC fact of the day. I think we were about 300 days away from the OU Tennessee game. And I've done it almost every day. I've missed a few here and there. I had a surgery and some stuff in there, but almost every day I put one out. And it's been a way, it's forced me to really dig into the traditions, the history, the mascots, the rivalries, everything that makes up the Southeastern Conference. So it's been a good project for me to kind of educate myself. Now, I don't know how many people have followed along and read them all and stuff. Maybe they don't care, but it's been good for me. As it pertains to the scene setter, I try to be a blank slate every week before I write that down. I don't try, like, I know Tennessee's coming here in a couple of weeks, and that's a huge game. But I also know that if I sit down tonight and try to write something for the Tennessee game, that 2 weeks from now, something will have changed.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll look at it and go, this isn't right. And I'll redo it. So I have found that the best thing to do is just be a blank slate until Sunday night, sit down. And sometimes it's Monday before I get hit with something. And then say, all right, what is the story? What is the story for this week? And write it. Now, it would probably make it easier on me if I could churn them all out before the season started, but I don't think it'd be the right way to do it. You know, I think sometimes
I don't
somebody
think
gets
it would have the
hurt,
same effect, right?
Yeah, there's a big storyline that breaks the week of the game or something like that. So, or you're coming off a win, or you're coming off a loss, or they're coming off a loss, or whatever the case may be. So, I feel like that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, it's because like last year, after the Texas week, if you would have had already something written out for UCF the next week and didn't mention anything that happened in the Texas game,
yeah, right.
Especially the way that game went down,
right?
And
that's exactly right. Yeah,
it's like that would be a huge miss. Absolutely. Anything on your research while doing your SEC fact of the day? Any crazy facts that you feel like stood out the most that you could think of off the top of your head?
Man, there's so many. So, back early in the days of Auburn football, Georgia Tech used to be in the SEC. Actually, that's one of them. When the SEC was formed, Tulane, Georgia Tech, and a little school called Sewanee in Tennessee were all members of the Southeastern Conference. And Georgia Tech and Auburn had a big rivalry. They'd take the train, this is back in the 30s, 40s, something like that. They would take the train, and the students at Auburn decided the night before the game, they went and greased the train tracks at the Auburn train station. And when the Georgia Tech players came in, they just slid right past the train station, like 5 miles down the tracks before they could stop the train. And the Georgia Tech players all had to get out and walk 5 miles back to the stadium to play the football game, and got killed, you know.
Yeah.
And so that was, you know, that's crazy. Well, there was an interesting one about Tennessee. So Tennessee's got the checkerboard end zones.
Hmm.
I never even thought of where did that come from. But there is a building, I think it's an administration building that sits right behind the end zone at Neyland Stadium. And Neyland Stadium didn't used to be double deck 100,000 people. And when General Neyland, who was the coach of the Tennessee football team at the time, when he was wanting his offense to, you know, get it in gear and get going, he would tell him to run to the administration building. Now, the administration building, around the top of it, the bricks were formed in a checkerboard design. And so he would say, run to the checkerboard, which was the design of the bricks around the administration building. Run to the checkerboard. And it became like a rallying cry for the offense when they wanted to get it going, run to the checkerboard. And that is where the whole checkerboard theme came from at Tennessee. Of course, many years later, after General Neyland had died, the coach took over and decided, let's paint the end zones checkerboards. And, you know, the rest is college football history. So, you know, there's been a couple of hundred things like that I never. It's amazing how many grave sites, usually pet grave sites, are at SEC stadiums.
Really?
Like, there's a ton of dead mascots that are either in mausoleums or buried under the turf. The very first Bulldog at Mississippi State's buried at the 50-yard line. Every UGA that has passed away is interred in a mausoleum at the front entrance at Georgia. There is an actual human cemetery just outside Alabama Stadium in Tuscaloosa. The stadium was built right next to it, and part of the agreement was you can't do anything to obviously move this cemetery. It's not big. It's a small cemetery. There are no Alabama football players or coaches in it at all. But it's literally steps outside the stadium, and on and on and on. There's a lot of things like that. There's rumors that one of OU's first mascots is buried at Owen Field, Mex the dog. I don't know if you ever heard
Oh,
about Mex the
I've
dog.
never heard of Mex the dog.
Way back in the day, we had a little dog that they kind of took upon themselves as the mascot of the team. And they put a little sweater on him with an OU on it and everything. When he passed away, rumors are they buried him under the north end zone. So, you know, maybe there's little dog bones under the north end zone at Owen Field. I don't know. But anyway, there's a ton of interesting things about this conference. It's old and historic.
I think that's what's going to be super fun about it, right? Is that there's so much history and they just love it. So, like, their fans are so into it. I remember I graduated from OU December of 2008. So my last semester was the season that Bradford won the Heisman.
Yeah.
So definitely a fun year to be in school. And so we go to Florida for the national championship game, go to Miami. My buddies and I, we drive from Dallas to Miami. So we show up, I think the game was on a Thursday. We show up, I believe, Monday evening, and we're down in like South Beach, and there's just OU people everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's just OU everywhere. And I remember my buddies and I talking about, like, dude, it is OU Central. It's going to be packed. Not thinking about the fact that, you know, it's a 20-something hour drive for Sooners, and it's a 4-hour drive for the University of Florida. So they're going to show up like the day of the game, right? And we get there. When we get there, the game's like, it's like a 7 p.m. kickoff, maybe 8 p.m. kickoff for the game. We get there at like 10:30, 11 to start tailgating. And there are thousands upon thousands of Florida fans that looked like they'd been there for a minute, right? Like their setup was amazing. I've never seen anything like it. So I think that is going to be a game changer.
That's what's great. Yeah. It's fans that are passionate like we are.
Yeah.
I think that's why OU is such a great fit in this conference.
I think that's going to be super exciting. Is there a one spot that you're looking forward to going to the most this year that maybe you've never been to before?
Yeah, I mean, of the 4 road trips this year in football, we've been to Missouri. The other 3 I'm all looking forward to. Ole Miss, the most famous thing about that is the Grove.
Yeah.
And it's an 11 a.m. or noon kickoff there. And I don't know how much I'm going to get to really experience the Grove, which is a tailgating scene. Auburn is going to be great. I think Auburn has some really cool traditions like the War Eagle, and their fans are crazy and everything. The broadcast booth there is the worst in all of college football, so that's dampened my enthusiasm a little bit for Auburn.
What's
But
so bad about it?
it's in the end zone. It's
Oh,
facing, most of the time, all the time, our radio booth is on the sideline. Now, it may not be in the middle of the field. It might be at the 20-yard line, or sometimes we've even been at the goal line before. But you're looking at the field from the sideline. This will be the only booth I've ever been in, and the only one that I know of that is behind the goalposts. And so you're calling the game this way, which makes it very hard. I'm imagining very hard to tell what yard line the ball is on for
yeah.
my job. So that's every SEC play-by-play guy that I've talked to just says it's a nightmare. So anyway, I'm dreading that a bit. But the stadium and the fans and the Eagle and everything are going to be cool. The LSU is the one I'm looking forward to the most this year. It's the last game of the season. Death Valley is an epic atmosphere. I don't know if we're going to get a night game or not, but if it's a night game there, it's almost impossible to beat those guys. The whole place smells like gumbo and jambalaya as you walk into the stadium, I'm told. So I can't wait to experience what Death Valley's like.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. And it's like holiday weekend, right? It's right after
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
yeah.
So it should be an amazing atmosphere. I'm looking forward to that one as well. I've had conversations with friends about going to that game. A couple of friends, because I have a handful of Sooner friends that live in Houston now. So they've talked about going that. My mom's side of the family is all LSU people. So like we've talked about like going with cousins and stuff. But I'm going the week before to Bama, so it's like I don't know if I can pull
back to back,
back to back, like going to 2 games.
If we beat Bama, you're going to be in bad.
I know. It's like I had a conversation with my wife because my wife and I have talked about it, but she's never like looked at the schedule. So for like months, I was like, hey, probably Alabama go to, and then also we're gonna go to LSU. And then so I remember like 2 weeks ago, I was like, hey, just FYI, you know how we've been talking about going to Bama and LSU? I was like, those are back-to-back weekends. And she looked at me, she's like, you probably need to figure which one you want to go to. She's like, that's a lot of traveling in like a 10-day span. I was like,
is
yeah,
your wife an OU fan?
She went to Texas Tech. So
my condolences.
I know. It's been an interesting it's been an interesting time. I will say this, since we've been married, they've only beat us twice.
Okay.
So we got married in 2010. So they beat us, in 11 to break the home winning streak.
Yeah.
And then didn't beat us.
Off.
Yeah. And then didn't beat us. Yeah.
I can't remember what year that was, but boy, they almost got beat by Abilene Christian last week.
I know. She had fallen asleep and she like woke up in the middle of the night. I was like, hey, you guys almost lost to ACU. I was like, I was watching, I think was it A&M and Notre Dame was happening. I was like, and I saw the ticker go by and I saw that it was like a 3-point game. I was like, we're turning off the A&M game. We need to see if they lose to a pretty much a D2 school right now. Yeah. So that would have been interesting. I think one of the coolest things that you do is your end of the game. Basically, like, I don't know if you want to call it your calling card or your catchphrase, but put the ponies in the
wagon.
Unhitch the wagon, put the ponies in the barn. How did you come up with it? Did you have like other things that you were trying? Like, was it a trial and error thing when maybe in your first couple of years?
So I'm a big Cincinnati Reds fan, and Marty Brenneman was their play-by-play guy for 40 years. And I'm a Reds fan because my dad was a Reds fan because of Johnny Bench. And when he grew up in Oklahoma, Johnny Bench was from Binger. He went to the Reds, so Dad rooted for Johnny Bench and the Reds. So I started rooting for the Reds. Then we moved up to Indiana when I was in high school, about an hour and a half from Cincinnati, and we went to tons of Reds games. So I would listen to Reds games every summer, all summer long. I've listened to thousands of Reds games with Marty Brenneman. And every time the Reds won, the final out, Marty would say, and this one belongs to the Reds. And I loved that. I loved just hearing that it's over, we won tonight, And even if it was 8-1 in the ninth inning, I would keep the radio on just to hear Marty say, and this one belongs to the Reds. So when I got the OU job, I thought that'd be cool. That'd be cool if I could come up with something like Marty said. But I've learned, and I think it's just true, that if you try to plan that kind of stuff out, you sit down and try to write something you think is clever, most of the time it comes out sounding really corny. And so I didn't plan anything out. First year on the job, 2011, we're playing Ball State at home. And it's like the third quarter, and we're killing them. We score another touchdown. I think that made it 63-0 or 63-7, something like that. Ponies come out and start to run, and I said on the air, we could probably unhitch the wagon and put the ponies in the barn at this point. Well, that highlight got replayed and got some traction and some positive feedback. So I thought maybe that's it. Maybe that's something. So the next game, as soon as the moment hit where you're like, this is over, game's over, they're not coming back. It's not necessarily the final horn.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the touchdown that seals the deal. This game's over, the interception or whatever the case may be. And so I said it again, and I got positive feedback again. And so I just decided, I think this is it. I think this is what I'm going to say. And it's ever since then, that's been kind of the deal. So I'm proud of the fact that it was born out of an organic moment, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of became what people know me as. I'm the unhitch the wagon guy.
Do you have a favorite like memory call, like a call that's like your favorite unhitch the wagon moment?
I've prematurely said it once, and that was the repunt when OSU beat OU with Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
When the punt took place and they roughed the kicker, I thought it was roughing the kicker. I said, you can unhitch the wagon because we're going to keep the ball and run out the clock. This game's over. And then they called running into the kicker, and we repunted it and lost the game. That's the only time I've ever prematurely said it. But, yeah, no, I don't. Every time you beat Texas, it's extra sweet. There's been a lot of the game is decided, the 4 overtime game is decided on Trey Brown's interception, and that's it. Kennedy Brooks runs it in late to beat him. That's it. Nick Anderson last year. That's it. Whenever something extra sweet about beating Texas and getting to unhitch the wagon against those guys.
Yeah, those are good memories. I liked your it's Benito. It's Benito. That's a really good one too, because
that was Baylor.
Yeah, that was Baylor, and that was a huge comeback. I have a fun story about that that game. So I'm driving to Tyler, Texas for a road gig that night. And I am driving with 2 other comics, and I'm listening to the game. And this one comic just keeps talking, right? And I'm obviously like, I'm listening to this game, and I just keep turning it up. And he just keeps talking louder, and I'm like, hey, do you not realize I'm trying to listen to this game right now? And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Baylor just keeps like shoving it down our throats.
Yeah.
And I am just so frustrated. So then I think halftime happened. So I shut it off. We're almost to Tyler at this point. We get to Tyler, and then they start slowly coming back. But the place that we're performing at doesn't have a TV, and it doesn't have good enough cell service where I can watch the game on my phone. So I'm just watching like the game cast on ESPN.
Oh, that's brutal. Yeah.
And so I see it come back. And then we get the field goal to go up, right? But then it just stops. There's no updates for like minutes. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, let me know. And I'm about to go on stage, and I'm like, I need to know what happens to this game before I get on this stage. Please tell me you turned
on the radio.
Right? No, I didn't get to hear the call, but what I got it to work to where finally I see the interception, and then it's like, clock hits zeros. As I'm going on stage, I see it happen. Like, I have my phone in my hand, see it happen. And I go to the host, like he like introduces me or whatever, and I whisper in his ear, I was like, oh, you came back and won. And there's like a picture of him pulling back, being like, what? Or whatever. And I just turned around, I was like, how's it going, everybody? Like,
best set you've ever had that night.
Yeah, it was so much fun. But yeah. I'll go back and I'll, because I'm a nerd about watching games. because most of the time when I watch a game, it's, the kids are home, we're watching the game. You don't get to really see it. You see it, but you don't see it, right? So I usually will either record it and rewatch it, or I like to go back and watch like the YouTube, like 30-minute highlights, but
Right.
with the OU radio broadcast. If I can find those, that's a lot more fun.
There's some guy out there, I can't remember his name, who puts those together like every week. He'll go back and put the highlights with the radio call over it, which is a lot of work, I would assume. But
because it matches up perfectly.
I know a lot of people go listen to him, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a fun thing. Okay, I was thinking about this question for you. So you've called a lot of amazing players, right? You've had multiple Heisman winners that you got to watch, call multiple games for them. Then Jalen Hurts is a, Pro Bowler. CeeDee Lamb, Hollywood Brown, Sterling Shepard. You got the tail end of Ryan Broyles' career,
Yep.
Kenny Steele. I mean, tons and tons of
Yep.
awesome names. Is there any random play? I wouldn't call them random, but not one of those upper echelons that you could think of. They're like, man, I really enjoyed calling this person. Like they always did something that you never knew they were going to do something big in a game.
Well, I mean, Drake Stoops was one of those guys, and I know that's a big name, or because of who his dad is. But God, it seemed like he always came up with the clutch catch that you needed, especially on third downs to get a game. We always referred to Nick Basquin as third down Basquin because it seemed like he always made big third down pickups. That's a good question. There's really nobody at OU that flies under the radar, I mean, if you make plays at OU, you're a star. So it's a little hard to. I mean, Samaje Perine doesn't get, for the all-time record holder in NCAA history for single game. Like, you didn't say his name, and he goes under the radar in the past 10, 15, 20 years of superstars at OU. But God, he was great, man. He was a great college player.
And I feel bad for not saying his name because he was, especially in 2014, he was that offense.
Yeah.
I mean, with all the injuries with quarterback and everything like that, he was the offense. And as a true, him at West Virginia, I mean, talk about, you're 18 years old. That's the third game of the season, maybe. I'm trying to remember exactly when it was, but it was early on in the season, and he put that team on his back. I was going to say Nick Basquin because I always enjoyed, he always just came up with random big plays.
Yeah.
And then Lee Morris.
Lee Morris. Yeah. Kyler's boy.
Yeah. He would catch it. What did he have? Another touchdown? He that one season he had 9 catches and 7 touchdowns or something,
that's right,
through the season. So that's a good one.
We've had some great H-backs or fullbacks over the past, like Dimitri Flowers, who especially, this is a bad word, but especially in the Lincoln Riley offenses, we had some H-backs and full, even late in Bob's years, that would make random huge plays out of nowhere. So
it's Trey Miller. He always had had the huge play against Texas. What was that, 2012 with the leap and the stiff arm at the same time?
Yeah.
So
you're good with years. You remember years better than I do. It all runs together for me.
I don't know why I've always been good at years, but I think of years because I'll try to remember what I was doing while I was watching that game, where I was in my, we were at so-and-so's house. They just gotten married. They got married in 2012. It was 2012.
Right.
I don't know. I have a very
That's my problem. I'm always in the same place for every game, so I can't differentiate them like that.
Yeah, it just kind of rolls in. It's the same. Yeah. It's is this the same day again? Okay. So talk to me about growing up. Grew up in Oklahoma. Were you always a huge OU fan, or were there times that Oklahoma State kind of bled into the things that you were doing?
No, always a huge OU fan. So my dad's a pastor, and we grew up in Oklahoma City and then Mustang, which is a suburb of Oklahoma City. And my whole family went to Southern Nazarene University, and I went to Southern Nazarene University, which is in Bethany, another suburb of Oklahoma City. And so growing up, my dad, huge sports fan, would take me to SNU basketball games. And I loved it. I loved going to games. Well, one day I'm 7 years old, 1980, he takes me to my first OU football game. It's Bedlam. And we got tickets about 70 rows up in the south end zone, obviously before the renovation when the south end zone went just up into the sky. And I was absolutely captivated. Like, I'd never seen anything like that. The crowd, the marching band, just the whole pomp and circumstance that was an OU football game. OU killed them that day. It was like 63-7. And I fell in love. So Dad was an OU fan, but that's the day that I was like hook, line, and sinker. I want to come to as many of these as possible, and I'm following this team. I would put out my personal college football top 25 every week. I would unveil it to my family, like when I'm 8 years old, and OU's ranked number 1. It didn't matter how many undefeated, if they had lost 1, 2, 3, whatever, the OU's ranked number 1. And and then I've been an OU fan my whole life. We moved to Indiana. That was actually kind of fun. I lived there for 5 years, and it was different, but kind of fun to be a lone renegade. I can relate to some people who live in other parts of the country and are surrounded by other fan bases, but fly the OU flag proudly, because we were the only OU fans in Indiana that I knew. And that was back when, Billy Tubbs was taking them to the Final Four, and we had some great football teams in the late 80s. So, yeah, I've always been an OU fan, huge OU fan.
Did they ever make you like defend your top 25 rankings?
No.
Like they make you justify?
They ignored me. They're like, yeah, we got you. I would be like, I'm 8 years old, and I would be like, yeah, I moved Michigan down 2 spots this week, and here's why. And they're like, just, come on. We've had enough already.
Get through it, please. Like, tell us why you have Rutgers at 24. Like, that's impressive. So, were you just like growing up, sports, watch a ton of sports? Really?
Yeah.
When did you start thinking like maybe you want to get into like broadcasting?
I was a giant sports dork. I mean, I played basketball, I played tennis, and then I watched everything. I would act out OU games in the backyard while John Brooks called them. My brother and I would play entire 64-team NCAA basketball tournaments on our Dr. J goal. We would like draw up the bracket, and we'd play all 63 games so we had a champion. I played baseball in the backyard all summer long. I was always the Reds, and I'd pitch it, hit it, field it, tag myself out, all this kind of keep standings. I mean, I was a giant sports dork. I was an accounting major my sophomore year at Southern Nazarene, and had a particularly tough test one day. And I remember telling my dad, I don't think I can do debits and credits for the rest of my life. And he was like, well, what would be the greatest job you could think of? And I said, well, the greatest job I could possibly, this is a true story, the greatest job that I could possibly think of would be the play-by-play voice of the Oklahoma Sooners. But that's not going to happen. So if I could just be one of those broadcaster guys, if I could be a play-by-play guy or sports broadcaster and get paid to go to games, that's my passion. That's what I love. And to his credit, if he had said, that's silly, you're good at math, stick it out, I would be an accountant today. There's no doubt. But he said, I agree with you. I think that's what you're passionate about. I think you should pursue it. So I immediately changed my major to broadcast journalism and got an internship at Channel 9 in Oklahoma City. I was on the basketball team at SNU, but I didn't play. I sat the bench. And my coach between my junior and senior year came to me and said, knowing what I wanted to do for a career, he said, basically, if you'll give us the scholarship back that we're wasting on you, we'll give you some money to start a sports information department for us, and we'll let you call our basketball games your senior year. So I was like, great, I don't have to run any more gassers, and I can start calling games, which is what I wanted to do. So I learned under SNU's play-by-play guy how to do games. I was his color analyst, and he'd let me be the play-by-play guy. We added football and baseball while I was there, so I got to learn how to call football and baseball. And then it just kind of, it took off from there. So I would say it was always in me. I always was passionate about it. My dad's a pastor. My grandpa's a pastor. My uncles are pastors. So we all kind of have this speaking in front of large gatherings DNA.
Yeah.
But my sophomore year in college is when I made the decision. All right, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to see if I can do this.
So
Not
after,
OU, just being a broadcaster.
yeah,
No,
just getting into it, right?
not the OU thing. Yeah.
So you go from you doing like the student, I guess you've got like, doing the games at school. And then after college, is that where like internships start, or, what's next after that?
I got hired by SNU after I graduated. So I did their football, basketball, and baseball games for 6 years. And then when I went full time to Channel 9, I kept doing games on the side for people, like high schools, colleges, local radio stations that needed. So I was keeping, sharp and doing play by play. And then Channel 9 had an affiliation with the University of Oklahoma. We were part owners of their broadcast arm of the university. So when they would need a spare softball play-by-play guy or baseball or women's basketball or something, they would call me up. So I got to know the people at OU that way. This is mid-2000s. Then in 2009, they were looking for a new sideline guy. And again, because of the partnership that Channel 9 had, I think that really helped me get that job. And they knew me at this point. So that was really, I was happy as a pig in slop to be the sideline guy and work with Bob Berry and Merv Johnson. And I'm like, I'm on the OU broadcast that I grew up listening to. I'm traveling the country with the OU football team. This is unbelievable. Like if I had done that the rest of my life, I would have been happy. But 2 years into it, Bob announced he's retiring. And my wife said, you're going to go for this, right? This is your dream job. And I said, well, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. I'm going to put together a resume tape and let them know I'm interested. But just so you understand, hun, we got no chance at this. Like, this is Walter Cronkite, Kurt Gowdy, John Brooks, Mike Treps. But like, this is a top 5 job in America. Everybody in the world is going to go for this job. And certainly guys with a lot better, longer resumes than me. So don't get your hopes up. And months went by after I submitted my resume tape, and I didn't hear anything. And understandably so, assumed that they had gone in a different direction. And then I got a call that said, can you do a phone interview on Monday with Learfield Sports? You're one of the 5 finalists to be the next voice of the Sooners. And I was like, hun, you're not going to believe this. We got no chance at getting this job. But now we can always tell people we were one of the 5 finalists, right? That's cool. So I did the phone interview. It went fine. They said the next step is we're going to invite the 3 finalists to campus for face-to-face interviews here in a couple of weeks. This is all top secret. If you don't hear from us, assume we've moved on to somewhere else. It's 2, 3, 4 weeks go by. I didn't hear anything. We didn't get the job. And then I got a call. And he said, can you be on campus on Monday morning? Face-to-face interviews with Joe Castiglione and President David Boren. You're one of the 3 finalists. I said, hun, you're not going to believe this. We got no chance at getting this job, all right? I'm sure they're throwing me a bone because I'm the sideline guy. Just trying to keep me happy. But now we can tell them we were one of the 3 finalists. And she had more faith than I did. She made me go buy a new suit for the interviews. And I did the interview with Joe Castiglione, and that went great. I knew Joe well, so we were friends, and that was no big deal. But then he walked me over to President Boren's office. I didn't know him at all. And he is an intimidating man. He was the head of security for the United States. He knows everything. And I walked into his office and sat down, and he knew everything about me the minute I walked in. He knew my parents' names. He knew my professors' names at the university I went to. Like, he had done his research on me. And we proceeded to have an hour and a half conversation that was as comfortable, like we were best friends our whole lives. We talked about the history of the job, how big of a deal the job is to me, being an Oklahoma kid. It was a great conversation for like an hour and a half. And then he looks down at his watch and says, I hate to end this. I got to let you go. Henry Kissinger is coming over the house tonight, and I got to go make sure that everything's okay. I said, President Moore, that's the first and last time anybody will say I got to let you go because Henry Kissinger is coming over the house tonight. But I left his office and I grabbed my phone. I called my wife. I was like skipping to my car. I was so happy. I said, we might get this job.
Yeah,
And
this is the first time it's switched, right?
First time. And she goes, don't get your hopes up. And so I was like, all right. And then 2 days later, they called and offered us the job. And I cried like a little baby. I mean, I'm getting emotional now. And this has been 14 years now, you know? And so it was just unbelievable. And there was 3 days till they were going to have a press conference, and we weren't allowed to tell anybody. Longest 3 days of my life. We're like passing people we know in the grocery store, and I just want to shake them and go, you're not going to believe what's about to happen, you know? But, I mean, we knew our lives changed that day. And I don't know why they put faith in me. Joe Castiglione and President Bourne and Bob Stoops had a say too. I don't know why they put faith in me because I didn't have the most experience, but they liked something, and they changed our lives that day, and it's just been an unbelievable ride ever since.
Well, I think the fact that it's your passion comes through on the call, right? So you can go hire the most polished person ever. You can go hire someone with tons and tons of experience that maybe they used to call Yankee game, whatever, right? Like it's not going to be the same as someone that's why college football is so amazing, is because of the passion, right? Like if you think about it, we're watching teenagers and 20-year-olds play a sport, right? I am 18 years older than everyone on that, than the freshmen that are playing in those games. But you're so passionate about it because there's just a different passion behind it because it's all those emotions. For you, it's growing up watching them.
Yeah.
For me, it's becoming a fan once I went to school there, and then all the memories with my friends and all of the things that you learn in school and the ups and the downs, and it all just kind of goes inside with it. So that's why
I think I know what it means too to like the people of this state. I know what OU football means to the people of Oklahoma. That guttural pride that they have in this football program and how they live and die with it. And I don't know if you go hire someone from, as you said, New York or California, if they maybe understand that right away. But for whatever reason, they blessed me, and it's been amazing.
What was the call like to your dad, telling him that was happening?
You're gonna make me cry now. Like, I had kept him updated, even though I wasn't supposed to. Once we got into the doing interview stuff, and he's my best friend. To this day, like we call each other during games, we watch games together, and so he was like me, like he couldn't believe it, and at the same time is my biggest fan. So he's like, you deserve it, but at the same, it was just. He was proud. I mean, that's it. Like, he was just super duper proud.
I can imagine, because there's just these moments that you share with like father son growing up that they mean so much more than anything else. Like, I grew up a Rangers fan because I'm from the DFW area. So, it's going to Rangers games at 5-6 years old with your dad and remembering going to those. And I just remember last year when the Rangers finally won the World Series, I just wept in my living room, and it was like, I'm not even really that emotionally tied to this specific roster because, you get a little bit older, you have other things going on. So you're not, and a lot of these guys have only been on the team for like 1 or 2 years. So you don't really know them that well, but it was just something about the Rangers winning the World Series. It just brought back all those emotions of, hanging out with your dad for a few hours on a Tuesday night, And so I can imagine that conversation being probably one of the best conversations you've ever had in your life.
For sure.
Absolutely. So name of the show is called Back in the Day. I like to, each season I focus on one storyline where I ask my guest, a story from back in their day. This season, I'm focusing on stories from times that you think you made your parents the proudest growing up. Do you have a story for me?
So I played basketball growing up. I went to Mustang junior high, and my dad was my coach, and I was a decent basketball player. I was like the MVP of the seventh grade team at Mustang junior high. But then we moved to Indiana, and basketball is a different thing in Indiana. Like, it's everything to them. And I played in eighth grade. I sat the bench, and then I just decided I'm not going to do it in high school. I can't. I didn't like it. I felt like they were prejudiced against me because I wasn't one of the homegrown products, and I just kind of quit the sport. And I didn't play high school basketball. Newcastle, Indiana, where I went to high school, has the largest high school gymnasium in America. It seats 10,000 people.
Dang.
And it's like the whole town turns out to watch. It's Hoosiers. But I didn't. So when I went to college, I came back here to go to Southern Nazarene, and I tried out for the JV basketball team. I was like, I'm just gonna, it's still in me. Surely I can play JV. They had a JV team, and I made the JV team, and it went well. And I got asked to be on the varsity. And so my junior year, I am on varsity at Southern Nazarene. Now, remember, this is the school where my dad would take me to watch games when I'm a little kid. And my parents flew down to the game, and I led the team out onto the court for layup lines and everything. And I'm in my SNU basketball jersey. And just knowing the journey that kind of had taken place there, I didn't play. I wasn't any good. I say to this day, when I go back and MC banquets at SNU, that I'm the greatest fourth string point guard in SNU history. But I was playing college basketball, So I just remember the look in their faces when I ran out that day, just like they were in the crowd. Like, I felt like I made them proud that day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Persevered,
right? Yeah. I think once you become a parent, you realize like I get emotional when my kids do things that are not even that impressive. So I get you're just like, why am I so emotional right now? You did better on your spelling test this week than last week. Why am I so
How old are your
pumped
kids?
for that? I have a fifth grader and a second grade, two girls.
Great.
So
girls
they're
are the
in a fun age right now.
Yeah. We have three kids. The two oldest are boys, and my youngest is a girl. She's in high school right now. And she just completely dominates our life. Like, she gets whatever she wants because I can't tell her no. She's just got me completely wrapped around her fingers. So they're the best.
I'm able to tell them no, but they are just a lot of fun. Like all of my, some of my buddies that have boys as well. Like, are you upset that you don't have a boy? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, maybe not. I was like, but being a girl dad's super fun. Yeah. You get to be cheesy with them. You get to do things that you probably would not have done with boys. So it's super fun. What about a time that you feel like growing up that you either embarrassed them by something you did or disappointed them?
I'm going to go disappointed route. And I also was in the band. I was a trumpet player, and I was really into it. And I was good. I was pretty good at it. And my, through high school and even into college, I got a little bit of scholarship money to be in the college jazz band. And my high school senior year, my parents bought me a Stradivarius trumpet. Now, this is a silver, expensive, top of the line concert trumpet, thousands of dollars. And it was awesome. I played it my senior year in high school. I took it to college with me. I played it in college. I find the love of my life in college, Jennifer Smith. And I proposed to her. We get married. As soon as I graduate, she's still a senior. We get married, and I take her on our honeymoon, and we go to Niagara Falls and Toronto, Canada. We take this very nice honeymoon. And we got back, and we're telling my parents all about where we went. And my mom and dad are like, wow, how'd you pay for that? I was like, well, I sold my trumpet. And I remember their faces were just like, what? I was like, I sold the Stradivarius trumpet. I paid for my honeymoon with the trumpet. And they were like, I don't know what they thought. I don't know if they thought I was going to hang on to the trumpet for the rest of my life and pass it on to my kids. Maybe that's what I should have done. I'm not saying it's my proudest moment, but I sold my trumpet to pay for my honeymoon. And I still think they're mad at me to this day for that. So
isn't it funny? Like, even like, it's like, you're like, I'm an adult at this point. Like, why are you so
my
like
trumpet, right? You gave it to me.
my trumpet.
Yeah.
It's I think parents that you never stop doing that, because like we were at my parents' house this past weekend, and I was talking about that there's this tattoo that I want to get, and I don't have any tattoos. And so I was asking my dad. My dad is from Iran, and so I was asking him, I was like, "Can you write our last name in Farsi, the Iranian language?" And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "What do you want this for?" And I was like, "Well, I'm thinking about getting like our last name in your handwriting, tattooed, like small tattoo."
That's awesome.
And the look of my mother's face, of just, I was like,
no, you're not.
I'm 38 years old.
I don't care how old you are. I'm still your mom. You're not doing
that. Like, right? And you're just like, okay, all right. She's like, we'll see what happens. I was like, we will see what happens. Like, now it's like, me, Mom. Now that's going to make me get it even more. But yeah, so that's happened. Oh, there was one thing I didn't ask you about. Your book that you wrote.
Mm-hmm.
The book about two of them. I know Unhitch the Wagon, the Boomer and Sooner one. What's the other one?
Put the Ponies in the Barn just came out. Unhitch the Wagon came out about 4 years ago. The story of Boomer and Sooner. And it's kind of about how the ponies grow up to be Boomer and Sooner, the ponies that carry the schooner at Owen Field. And they got to train and get bigger and stronger to do that. And they train against other mascots in the Big 12 at the time. So as soon as we announced we're going to the SEC, light bulb, we need a sequel. And so Put the Ponies in the Barn is about the ponies going around to gather up all the mascots in the SEC and bring them back to show them what the Palace is all about and show them what Sooner Magic's all about. So they got a gator and an elephant and 3 tigers and a wildcat and bulldogs and all kinds of things in the back of the schooner, and they're bringing them back to Owen Field. So been fun. I told you I love to write.
Yeah.
And this opportunity came along about 5 or 6 years ago to maybe do a kid's book. And I began that path and figuring out what the whole world of publishing is like and everything. And it was received very well by Sooner Nation. It's been a thrill to get to go to schools and read to kids and do book signings and meet people I would never otherwise. And people send me pictures on Friday nights before games of them reading the books to their kids before they go to bed. It's a family tradition. They got to read them the night before the games. And so I didn't expect all that. And it's been a really cool deal. We got to make sure do you have one?
I don't have one.
I'm sending you both books.
All right. I appreciate that. I showed my youngest this morning. I was like, hey, I said, after I drop you off, I'm going to go record an episode of Back in the Day. And I said, you see this book right here? And I showed her, I was like, he's this guy, he wrote this book. And she's like, oh, that's Boomer and Sooner. I was like, I love them. I've met them before. I was like, I know you have met them. She's like, they're very nice.
That's awesome.
Like, yeah, I'll be talking to him. But yeah, we'll have to check it out for sure. Well, Toby, dude, this was so much fun. I appreciate you jumping on. Anything you want to plug at all? Where can people find you?
The book, you can get the books on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or all over the state of Oklahoma at bookstores and stuff like that. I'm on Twitter at TROOU, Instagram at Sooner Voice, but I don't need any more people finding me. They know where I'm at. So just listen to the games.
All right, guys, don't follow him on stuff. He doesn't want it. But listen to the games every single Saturday. If you want to follow along on the podcast, you can follow me at Michael Pasvar on Instagram, on Twitter, and TikTok. Check out michaelpasvar.com for show dates. Make sure you subscribe the podcast so you know when the episodes come out. We will see you guys next time. Bye now.